Collingwood and Brisbane surge into the preliminary finals. Greater Western Sydney's memorable season continues, and Carlton finally tastes final success, a decade in the making. This is the finals so far, brought to you by AAMI. This is the final so far, brought to you by AAMI. I'm Riley Beveridge. This is Kane Cornes. Kane, it's been a pretty special weekend of footy. Let's start at the Gabba, where Brisbane rolled Port Adelaide, and it was done through their dominance out of the middle.
It was, and a pretty predictable result. What a team and what a performance it was for Brisbane. They're a different team this year. Defensively, they're much sounder, and they have more weapons in the front half of the ground than any team in the league, and through weight of numbers, they just piled on 8 goals in the third term and broke this game open. And you're right, it was out of the centre bounce. We're seeing that there. It was always going to be an issue. Oscar McInerney up against Scott Lycett, who hasn't played much footy. Cameron there was well held for the majority of the game, but got a couple of goals in the third term. But 13 goals from stoppage, which we'll get to in a moment, was far too much for Port Adelaide to cope with, and they'd be really disappointed as a midfield group, because that had been their strength all year, to concede that many and to allow Brisbane to score 19 goals in a final. It was a disappointing performance from a Port Adelaide side tonight.
So Port Adelaide conceded 13 goals tonight from stoppage, their most since 2012, Kane. But have a look at this. Throughout the entire season, they've been really even in these type of categories, both among the best teams in the comp. It was so stark, the difference between them tonight.
It was, and it was started by Oscar McInerney, who was going to be an issue for them, and his strength, Danaher, when he goes in there, can hold up as well. Finlayson, I thought, was uncompetitive as a second ruck for Port Adelaide, but Lachie Neale was well held by Willem Drew as well. So it was Dunkley. McCluggage had a huge performance. What a season he has put together. I think in the back half, he was a bit slow to get going. Without Ashcroft in there, he's been the one that has really stepped up. And then their forward line players, like Cam Rayner, looked like Lee Matthews tonight.
Yeah.
Like 6 years on the list now, #1 draft pick. There's been some frustrations. There's been an ACL. But on the final stage, as a nearly 24-year-old, he exploded tonight. That's why you have to be a little bit patient with these talented players. But his performance individually was exceptional. Danaher got 5, 10 individual goal kickers, and they're sitting pretty, waiting for a reasonable opponent in the prelim final in a couple of weeks' time.
They certainly look dangerous in the front half. Anything to worry about here for Zach Butters, do you reckon? Because this was an off-the-ball incident on Dane Zorko. There'd been a bit of back and forth between them in the moments leading up to this. Now, because it's so far off the ball, if it is judged a reportable offence, it's going to be intentional conduct. It was to the body, so it would need to be medium impact for that to be a 1-week suspension. Yeah,
it would be stiff to miss a week, you would think. That's gut feel, but I've been surprised by a couple of tribunal findings over the weekend. So if he gets one, they will go and argue it, and they'll try and get that severity of the contact downgraded to a fine so he doesn't miss a week. Look, I'm not sure how much GST Dane Zorko put on that, but he was certainly fine and carried out the game, and hopefully he doesn't go dobbing in the opposition again this week.
So it was a dirty night for Port Adelaide, but when they subbed off Darcy Byrne-Jones in the second half, it got even worse, because as soon as he got subbed off, Dylan Williams then does his hamstring. Trent McKenzie goes down with an ankle injury. Tom Jonas had a bit of a
shocking timing, wasn't it? It was a strange one for me, because Byrne-Jones had just kicked a goal there as well. Then he got subbed out. Boat came on. Williams did his hammy moments after, so just after the sub had been made. And then this happened a couple of minutes after, and McKenzie, you can see the frustration. He'd just come back from the side. Williams has got the hammy strapped up there and iced up. He won't play next week. McKenzie came back onto the ground, which was
weird, wasn't it?
Also strange that they didn't put him on ice, because of how important he will be if they can get him out there next week against the Giants, because there's nothing else. I mean, that's been the issue for Port. We've spoken about it at length. There's far too many holes in their list, in the ruck, key defenders behind the ball. That's why they're chasing big names at the end of this season, but that's not going to help them right now.
They will play the Giants next week, as you mentioned. Any concerns for them there? The Giants look good today.
Yeah, you'd think so, yeah. I think there's a lot of concerns. The Giants would have landed back in Sydney in their own beds. Port Adelaide, they look beaten up, they look banged up, they look tired at the end of the game. They've got to stay in Brisbane, recover there, then come home tomorrow. And the Giants have got a full complement. Canelio, you'd think, would come back into that side. So on the back of what they did to the Saints and their record away from home this year, which we'll get to, they'd be feeling pretty confident about progressing through next week.
Port did beat them quite comfortably late in the season at the Adelaide Oval. Let's stick with the Giants now, and at the MCG, where we find our Saturday star. It is Josh Kelly. Without Stephen Canelio as you said, he was fantastic. 27 disposals, 2 goals.
And most importantly, 10 score involvements. So everything he touched, nearly half his disposals, not quite, ended up in scores for the Giants. So he's gone inside. This is what I've loved about Adam Kingsley's coaching. And I think the biggest difference from them last year, this year, is their senior players have stood up and almost put together career best years. So we can speak about Toby Green, the All-Australian captain. This man, almost career best numbers. Cornelio, career best numbers. We've seen what Taylor has been able to do behind the ball. Whitfield has been in good form as opposed to last year. He has got the best out of his senior players. And then the young ones, Green, Callaghan, have come along for the ride, and Taylor and Buckley have held up behind the ball. But on this occasion, they tried to put Windhager in the second half to Kelly, but the damage had been done.
He was fantastic tonight, was Josh Kelly. It was a really interesting matchup on Toby Green in this one. Cal Wilkie, St Kilda's vice-captain, went to him. But there are a couple of moments here which we're going to pinpoint where, one, he sagged off him, two, he made decisions to attack the ball, and it left Toby Green with so much space.
Yeah, just wanted to highlight this. If you go, you've got to impact. And how many times did Cal Wilkie go and not impact? And if you're going to play on, he's such a smart footballer, doesn't get enough credit for his football IQ. So if you're going to go there, Wilkie, and he's done this and he's backed himself in for the majority of the year. He's an All-Australian, but you're on Toby Green on this occasion. He goes, doesn't impact. Green feels like, OK, I'm going to see my opponent go, I'm going to get to a dangerous spot, and this leads to a goal. So all of these times where Wilkie goes, Green gets the possession of the ball and largely results in a goal for the Giants. Once again, he sags off him there. If you're going to go there, you've got to put your fist through it or you've got to mark it. You can't be doing this and dropping the ball. Green is there at ground level, handball off, bang, another goal to Riccardi. So I wasn't surprised that the matchup went that way. Some were suggesting it was Webster. In the end, they moved off him. But on this occasion, off the Sinclair drop, he dropped an easy mark and Wilkie's just sagging off, and they're able to find Toby Green once again inside 50. The matchup didn't work.
Yeah, Webster went to him late, but the damage had been done, as you mentioned. The Giants will do it anywhere, anytime, Kane. Have a look at this. So tonight, they win at the MCG. It was the 11th different venue that they've won at this season alone.
I don't know if that'll ever happen again because of gather round. So you're seeing Nord Oval. I'm just not sure that will ever happen again. And have they won? Yeah, they've won at Adelaide Oval. So they go there again. That was against the Crows, of course, where they came from behind in the last quarter. So travel holds no fears, but it goes to show how difficult it has been for them to be in this position. 6 wins last year through to winning a final this year. Adam Kingsley's done something special with that group.
I think it's fair to say St Kilda outperformed the expectations on them this season. Is that how you saw it? They're obviously going to have a busy summer. We know Liam Henry looks like he's going to go there now, as Cal Toomey reported on afl.com.au today.
Yeah, I've said they've maximised what they've got on their list all year. So they have overachieved with what they have got. But that doesn't alleviate some of the efforts that we saw today. And I thought there was probably a dozen questionable efforts in the contest, which they will review, and some of them are for young players, but some of them are from Wilkie, some of them are from Sinclair, some of them are from Max King, who's played enough footy to be able to chase out and provide a contest. He hit the scoreboard today, but I thought his performance was poor. So I hope they review that hard, because a home final on the MCG, which they haven't had too many of, I thought there was a lot of questionable efforts and not worthy of a finals performance.
Let's get to our AAMI clangers now. Who covers clangers? AAMI does. We'll start with Matt Owies here. Friday night footy at the MCG. Trying to be too unselfish and handball to Charlie Kern. I'm not sure what he was doing.
You're a small forward, kick the goal. That's what you're paid to do, he was. And eventually they got the result, thankfully, because the margin in the end, that could have been the difference. He comes to the bench. That's what Michael Voss is there for. I love this. He's relaxed. He's saying, OK, what were you thinking? But good boy. Love the way that he plays. He's an infectious player, Matt Owies.
And Oscar McInerney, he was just about best on ground, as you mentioned before. This is one of his cheekier moments. Just the, didn't mean to do that.
Smart.
Ollie Lord's laughing at him in the background.
They're not known for their intelligence, Ruckman, but that was smart. Far too many players don't know that rule. He knew the rule, and he fooled everyone.
Let's get to Friday night footy at the MCG, where Carlton won its first final in 10 years. The role players really stood up for the Blues, none more so than Blake Acres. He kicked the winning goal at the end. He had two basically game-saving occasions when he touched the ball in the goal line as well. Yeah,
look at this. He's just an expert at playing that wing role. That's what he does. So he gets back hard. He saves 2 goals there. And what he does do, he tells the goal umpire, I touched it. And when the goal umpire is confused, and when it's goal umpire's call like that one was, it can go either way. He's saying, I touched it. And you can't really see it from there, but he did. That was called umpire's call, and a couple of goal-saving moments. And then his ability, which he's added to push forward and score. He's got an enormous work rate. They gave up nothing to get him, but maximum impact. And it's this sort of stuff that, you know, is what you do in finals. And the crowd loves it. All 92,000 of those Carlton fans that were there. The second effort's the run. It's why you do your pre-season with 1 minute to go in the last quarter. And this confirms it was touched.
This is the photo from Mick Wilson from AFL Photos. It's just about nothing we've seen from goal line technology this year. That's an incredible snap.
So what we need is an excellent photographer behind the goals to replace the people in the arc. Is that what we need?
Maybe Mick Wilson could go in the arc next week. Jack Martin got himself in some hot water in this one, but he was fantastic across the course of the night. We mentioned these role players. He was just someone that stood up, had a series of big moments where he took marks down the line, and then late in the game, in the final 2 minutes, when Sydney got it back to a couple of kicks, he went back as the loose man in defence and took a couple of huge intercept marks.
I reckon he's been awesome. And I know there's been some frustrations with him, big price that they paid to get him, but it's finally come together for him. For a large portion of the year, I think he's been really important. Watch how clean he is at ground level. And this is a game where there were errors, and there will be errors when the heat is on in finals. We're highlighting him late in the game going back. We showed this as Charlie Curnow in previous weeks, but on this occasion it was Martin. He did it twice and took 2 intercept marks. He's just a one-grab player. And it wasn't big numbers, 12 touches, but big impact across multiple positions. But unfortunately, we don't think he's going to be there.
He won't play in the semi-final against Melbourne next week because of this incident. Nick Blakey goes off the ground for a concussion test. He passes that. It was graded by the MRO, careless conduct, medium impact and high contact. High impact and high contact. The reason we say that is because Jacob Van Rooyen on Friday night, similar type of incident that he got Dan McStay. It goes as medium impact. It's only 1 week. McStay also went off the ground, also got a concussion test, also passed. That's where the confusion for me lies, in the sense that they both basically had the exact same impact, except one's graded medium, one's graded high.
I've got no idea. That for all money, that is a 1 week suspension, and we would all be happy with that. I'm not sure why they needed to make that statement of 2 weeks. That's not high contact. He's gone for a tackle. It's ill-timed. There was no malice in it. And Blakey played out the rest of the game and played out the rest of the game very well. So, look, the Blues will go to the tribunal. They will argue the force. They'll get it downgraded to 1 week. This is how it'll play out, and he'll miss this week. But if they progress, he'll be available for a prelim final, and that would be the right outcome.
It's going to be a really interesting outcome there. What about the Swans? Bowed out in the first week of finals. They made a grand final last year. There's a big correlation between teams that get blown out in grand finals and they're not progressing deep into September the following year. They're another one of those sides, though. It's going to have a busy off-season.
Yeah, and they need to. It's been a fight for them to get to this position. They did a lot of work after a slow start, and that was related to injuries, not dissimilar to Port Adelaide this year, but they've been beaten up around the ball and around stoppages. That's been their biggest issue. How many times have we done this show and highlighted the Swans stoppage numbers? One of the worst teams in the league for stoppage scores and all of the stoppage numbers. So they need a ruckman. Hickey's retired. We think Brodie Grundy will probably end up at Sydney, which I think would be a great move, and they need another key defender. And if they can solve those problems and work out their right midfield mix, they have enough young talent to bounce back up. We know they never rebuild, and they're a strong, proud club for not doing that. But all in all, an incredibly disappointing year with what they've got on their list.
Let's get to the qualifying final on Thursday night, where Collingwood went through to the prelim with a victory over Melbourne. It was their recruit, Bobby Hill. This is why they brought him to the club last off-season. 3 goals, set the tempo for them early.
Didn't he? Wasn't he a spark defensively, but also offensively? So he's been huge. I mean, he's just a real weapon. And if he gets behind you, it is lights out. Good night. You are done. He will put you to sleep. And he did this many times. So, look, Melbourne have one as well, and that's Kozzy Pickett. But Kozzy Pickett doesn't work as hard as this guy. They both have the same number of disposals, but defensively Hill was stronger, and he was able to finish his work with 3-1. So just look at the energy that he provides and the work rate. This is what Kozzy Pickett has to add to his game. As soon as he sniffs the turnover here, he is gone, and no one's going to catch him. One of the fastest players in the league, and this kick from Myercheck to be able to spot him up for his 3rd goal was elite. So he's a weapon. I like their small forwards. Not often do their tall forwards get you Collingwood, but on this occasion it was Hill that did the damage.
Let's get to our moment now. It was the moment of the weekend. It's going to be the moment that probably defines much of this week as well. Braden Maynard and this incident involving Angus Brayshaw. It left Angus Brayshaw off the field, stretchered off the ground. It was referred directly to the tribunal. It was graded careless conduct, severe impact, high contact. If that's upheld at the tribunal later this week, he's looking at a ban of more than 3 games. It would rule out him coming back this season. Brayshaw won't play as well next week. Obviously, he's in concussion protocols. How do you judge this game?
We're asking far too much of our players. We want them to be full-on finals players and attack the ball and attack the body. There's nothing else he could have done there. Now, I get people suggesting he should be suspended, but that's coming from people who don't understand and probably haven't played the game. He's running flat out. He jumps before the ball is kicked. What do you want him to do? He can't disappear in mid-air. He moves ever so slightly just to protect himself, as we're always taught to do. But you can slow that down and play it frame by frame, or you can play it in real time and tell me what other option Braden Maynard had there. So anyone suggesting that he should be suspended, I'd question whether you'd been in that position yourself, how much footy you have played, because you can't disappear into thin air. He's running flat out. He's trying to smother the football. He realises he can't. He just braces ever so slightly, and it's unfortunate and unlucky that that's where the contact happened. But we've seen Tom Lynch get off for bracing this year and collecting someone high and concussing Alex Keith, and we've seen other examples of that. So he does not deserve to miss a premiership for an action like that. It's
going to be incredibly fascinating to see how that plays out at the tribunal. Melbourne potentially should have won this game. They had 32 more inside 50s. They had a host of missed opportunities in the final term, which they squandered. They kept Collingwood to 4 inside 50s in the final quarter. Like, their dominance in this last quarter was beyond belief, and they just couldn't make most of their chances. 19-4 entries in the last quarter. Unbelievable that a player like Fritsch could not even score from that position. We saw the McDonald miss. There was a Sparrow miss on the run as well. So they just kept coming, and they kept coming hard, and credit to them. For 3 quarters, they were clearly the better side. Terrific mark from Quaynor there, who's had an awesome season, was lauded by his coach after the game. Pickett here, we spoke about that. You're not going to get much of a better opportunity than that as a small forward, an elite small forward in the game. You had to do better. Charlie Cameron kicks that goal. So you wanted to highlight quarter by quarter and the dominance that they had that they weren't able to put on the scoreboard. The remarkable thing about this as well, so they won inside 50s by 32. Collingwood had the first 7 inside 50s of the game. So after about halfway through the first quarter, they would have won it by 39. That's the incredible part about it. They just couldn't get any scoreboard pressure on at all, though, throughout the game. Yeah, you feel like if Melbourne get back there, they'd be feeling reasonably confident. And I think they can get back there. Now, perhaps Melbourne and Collingwood are the best 2 teams in it. Hard to say that when we saw what Brisbane have done, but Brisbane away from the Gabba is a completely different proposition than at home. So don't be surprised if Melbourne and Collingwood meet in the grand final again. Max Gawn was fantastic, just about the best on ground. I want to ask you, though, Kane, with Jacob Royan, if he either accepts his punishment of a 1-match suspension or if it's not overturned at the tribunal, what do they do against Carlton? Like, do they bring back Brodie Grundy? Because we didn't see this Max Gawn when Brodie Grundy was in the team. No, we didn't, but I think they probably have to, because this is what they didn't have the option of doing. So they couldn't get a forward winner. McDonald just looked like a VFL player, with all due respect. He didn't look like he was going to threaten at all. Could Brodie Grundy look as threatening as McDonald? Probably yes, but then also he can go in the ruck. So you've got the option to put Gawn as a forward inside the forward half as a target at least. Like this, he took 4 contested marks, but they weren't able to do that because they didn't have a second ruck option. So I think playing Brodie Grundy, as much as it's not ideal, gives them flexibility with Gawn. If they don't have a key position winner forward, at least they can put him down there as a target. Max Gawn, after the game, paraphrasing him here, but said something along the lines of it was a very Melbourne-like finals defeat. Since they won the flag in 2021, they've lost 3 straight finals now. And this is their combined stats in those 3 games. They've dominated every single statistical category, and they've just lost every game. Yeah, there was no connection whatsoever going inside forward 50. In the first half, you're thinking, OK, do they not realise the long, slow, high ball inside 50 isn't working? Like, you're almost better, and we've spoken about this, to kick along the ground and do something different. Running inside 50, just kick it along the ground and provide some forward line pressure that way, because it just didn't work. And it must be, I know it's frustrating for Melbourne fans. It's equally frustrating for the coach. They got personnel issues
down there now, but this has been a significant issue for the Dees for a long time.
Looked like they really missed Jake Melksham, of course, will miss the rest of the season with that knee injury. Let's get to our finals to come now. It's semi-final weekend next weekend. Melbourne will play Carlton at the MCG. Port Adelaide will host the Giants at the Adelaide Oval later in the weekend. It's do or die now, Kane. I want to ask you about Melbourne and Carlton. Do the Blues have enough in the tank to beat them, do you think?
I wouldn't have thought so.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we get sucked into the loser of the qualifying final and the winner of the other one, and you think, OK, there's a lot of optimism about the winner, but Melbourne are a very good side. They're really strong defensively. They can compete with the Blues around stoppage, which is their strength. I just think they have their game in better order than the Blues right now.
Looking forward to watching those two games next week. We will see you then on the Finals So Far.